I'm going to go into a bit more detail here on how I actually draw the zone. So on what time frames I draw these lower time frame zones on. So when I say what time frames I draw these lower time frame zones on, it's kind of a step down process. So straight into it. Firstly, you need to start in the 1 hour. So for this example, I'm just going to go back through a few London sessions and just draw off the zones. Not talking about any trades here. I'm just going to be drawing off the zones, so you can kind of see how I see it and how I do it myself. You'll pick it up quite easily. This isn't a really difficult concept. So first of all, once you're looking for lower time frame zones, you need to start drawing the zones on the hourly. So this is what you'll start on. Now for London session, obviously it's just, that would be the low right there. So it's the gap between the lowest point the body was open and the lowest wick. Pretty obvious. I mean, that's how everyone draws zones. So you start on the hourly like that. So that is how I draw the London low for today. The London high also I'd use on the hourly like that. It's a nice, thin, precise zone. Now the day before, what would I do? I would also do that on the hourly, because still that's not a very thick zone and that's pretty perfect. But when we come to this bit here, I wouldn't draw this on the hourly because that's a very thick zone. If I just measure how many pips that is, that's 35 pip zone, and your stop always has to go below the zone. And we don't want big zones like this because it just makes it inconvenient. We don't want to be trading a big zone like that. So what do? We go to the lower time frames below this. So you always have to start on the 1 hour because that is going to give us the best zones. But if the zones are too thick like this, the next step is to go over to the 30-minute. Can we make the zone any smaller, more precise on the 30-minute? In this case, no, it's still exactly the same zone. So in that case, you go over to the 15-minute next. Can we draw the zone even more precise? Yes, we can. And we can turn it into that zone right there. Now on the 15, I still think this zone is too thick for me to actually use it. So from that point, I'd go over to the 5-minute, and this is the last you do. You don't go any below the 5-minute, and then you can tighten it up like that. So really, all this process is starting on the hourly and trying to find the most precise but usable zone possible. So if it's not on the hourly, you go over to the 30-minute, then the 15, and then the 5. So that is an example from today. You will rarely ever have to go over to the 5-minute, but that is a good example there of how you would. So as I said today, you can just do it straight off the hourly. You'll rarely ever have to go on the 5-minute, but you will once the zones are too big like they were today. Now the problem with big zones, if I tell you why we go down to this, so on the hourly, say you had this zone right here, and you took a trade because it rejected the top of it right there, it could come all the way down to the bottom. I've seen this happen many times. It could come all the way down to the bottom and still reject the bottom, then bounce back up, because that is still a rejection of the zone. So you could have ended up getting in up there, even though price came all the way down here and rejected, and it could have stopped you out down there. So that's kind of why. And also, if you got in up there, you'd have to put your stop all the way down, and your risk to reward would just be awful. So that's why we actually do it. That's why we make the zones as small and precise as possible. So that was the example for that day. If I just throw that down, the day before that on the hourly, if I just show you, again, I would have just used that zone right there. I think that's a pretty good zone. I don't think I would make that any smaller. So that one was fine on the hourly. Now we go over to the low for that day. That right there, I think is just too big. So what I'd do, 30-minute, does the 30-minute show any difference? The 30-minute, it makes it a tiny bit smaller, but not really. So in that case, 15-minute. Now the 15-minute would give us that precise zone right there, and that's the one I would draw on. Now it's not making it any riskier by making this zone as small as that. It just means you might miss out on a couple trades maybe, but it's definitely worth it in the long run, because you'll have much better risk to rewards by taking trades, and you won't have the problem, like I said earlier, where you get in high and it comes all the way back down. So the day before that, I'm just going to list off a load of examples right here. The day before is a pretty special one. So it gives me another chance to tell you something. So the London high, I would draw that on the hourly again. But the London low, you can see on the hourly there, is huge. So throw it onto the 30-minute. Again, it's huge. I'm actually just going to take this back so it doesn't skip forward. The 30-minute again is huge. 15-minute again is huge. So none of the 15, 30, or 1 hour are showing anything there. And if I go to the 5-minute, The 5 minute is also way too big. I'm not drawing that as a zone. It's also way too big. So in this case, what I do is I just draw a line on the bottom like that, because there's no point taking anything unless it comes all the way down to the bottom, because you don't want to be taking trades up in here because that is just way too big. So in the one instance, well, it's very, very rare, but the 5 minute, if the zone's too big on the 5 minute, you just want to draw the bottom zone on. It's not going to be the nicest of setups, but that is what you want to do because you don't want to be taking trades up there. So in the one instance where the 5 minute you can't draw it on, just draw the bottom on with a line. So if I go back further, you can see the day before that. If we zoom out a little bit, the low for London, I would draw that on the hourly like that. But the high, that's way too big. That would be way too big a London high. So on the 30 minute, yep, now the 30 minute is even better. So I can get that clean zone right there. If I take that to the left, you'll see it was actually the London from the 2 previous sessions as well. So yeah, these are just examples, really simple. You should understand that by now, of how you actually draw a bit more detail, how you actually draw the session zone on each time frame. So you want to start off with the hourly. If the zone's too big on the hourly, go to the 30 minute. If the zone's too big for the 30 minute, go to the 15 minute. If it's too big on the 15 minute, go to the 5 minute. And if it's too big on the 5 minute, just draw that line on. So it sounds a little complicated, but it's not complicated at all. You will get used to it really quickly as well. So the best zones are on the hourly, but sometimes it will be too big. It just makes it too inconvenient. So this is exactly how I draw them on.